Hey everybody, it's Rowdy Meyer again, and I am a excited and happy Jackson County resident. I love living in Jackson County. But last night we attended the commissioners meeting to discuss and to hear the concerns and the feedback from the citizens on raising the mill levy, and again, really just basically raising taxes or property taxes in Jackson County again this year. So I'm going to send out this recording today. This is half of the meeting. They broke the meeting down into two parts. The first part was about the mill levy. The second part was about the budget. And I'll break it apart into two videos. I want you guys to know this video is 100% unedited, other than I cut it in half for the two meetings. For those of you who don't know, if you look at the commissioners, moving from left to right is Keith Kelly, Dan Brenner, and Mark Pruitt. A couple things that I noticed in the meeting that I think are important. The accountant that was in there talked about how, because costs have gone up, these are the ways they find to meet, the differences in costs for the county, no different than how a consumer, you or me, can use a credit card. And that I thought that was a pretty silly statement. Also, I want you to notice they talk a little bit in here about interest earnings. And so basically this is the interest earned off of investments, which would clearly indicate that the county has assets or has money, things that they can get at if they need to. So I thought that was a little bit contradictory. To sum up the meeting, basically what it talks about is the taxes have to go up because of employee raises. I think it's important that the county employees are highly compensated. I think it's important that we retain the best employees, but I don't think we should be rewarding the worst employees at the cost of the best employees. And so I'm in favor of that. The other thing is they blamed a lot of the deficit on the reservation because more and more land is being put in the trust, and therefore they're collecting less tax revenue. And then the third reason for the tax increases is the cost of everything going up. It's the same thing you and I, deal with every single day when we go and buy milk or bread or gasoline or whatever it is. The other thing you need to know is this meeting was procedural only, and the decision had already been made, and you'll see the proof of this because when they get to the end of the meeting, when they vote to approve it, they already had the resolution drawn up, and they can just read right through the resolution. So this was really a procedural meeting to meet the requirements of the state of Kansas. I'll tell you guys before we go on, because I want to be totally fair, I think there's some things that this county does great, and I think there's some things we can definitely get better at. But, you need to decide for yourself. So I encourage you to watch the meeting. I encourage you to get involved. One of the greatest things that came out of this meeting was last year at this exact same meeting, there was a dozen people in there, and last night there was over 100, which means we are making a dent by doing things like putting videos out like this, by notifying people of meetings, and by getting involved. I really encourage everybody not to get discouraged, about this. I think ground is being made. I think we need to keep going. We need to keep showing up at meetings. We need to keep recording. We need to keep doing these things because after the end of the day, we all live here. My final note is, civil discourse, it's healthy, but I'll let you judge for yourself.
And flags up here. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I just want to welcome everybody here to Revenue Neutral rate hearing. The purpose of this hearing is for us to listen and to answer objections of taxpayers relating to revenue neutral rates and the proposed tax rate as required by Kansas Statute 79-2988. This first portion of this meeting will be to talk about the mill levy only. If you have budget questions, those will be asked in the next portion of this hearing. With that, Commissioner Pruitt has a couple comments.
Yeah, guys, we ask you to be respectful to each other, please. And no outbursts. If there are outbursts, we'll ask you to leave. This is strictly for information purposes, and the only way that we can get information across to everybody is if everybody is respectful to each other. Okay, we really ask that. And the time limits that you're going to be speaking in, we got a lot of people to get through. They're going to be 3-minute time limits. Okay, and Mary up here will be keeping time. She will announce 2 minutes left, 1 minute left, and then she'll say time. And we ask you please to, if you got a sentence or two left, fine. But if you got 2 pages left, we're going to ask you to please, yield the floor and go back to your seat. Okay? Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Mark. Down here is Scott Boyd, he's a CPA, his specialty is in county budget, city municipality. Scott has been kind enough to work with us over the last couple of years to help us really change our budget and simplify it and use some of the money that was already there. He's got a few comments he would like to talk about, some things that we've gone through over the last couple of years. So go ahead, Scott. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to share with you. I think some people have a confusion about what revenue neutral rate is. So if you have a budget, you look at the publication that was in the paper, I'll just show you this real quick and kind of just briefly how this works. So like, if you look at the last column on that publication page on the attached, or the budget you have, the revenue neutral rate is 70.038. So how that works is the tax dollars from last year actually are frozen. So they stay the same as last year. The assessed value went from 152 million roughly to 158 million. So when the dollars are frozen and the assessed value goes up, the mill levy goes down. Okay? So that's why it went from 72.450 last year as your actual mill rate down to 70.038. The mill levy they chose to put in the publication stayed basically the same at 72.5. So I want to explain a couple things that we've had conversations about, because I do 5 county budgets and I do Pratt City, which is a larger city. And these conversations come up in every one of these hearings, every one of these conversations we have about the budget. You feel this at home, the same as what happens here at Jackson County. So if you just took the roughly 18 million after you back out the capital purchases in your 23 actual, it's 18 million times 1.05. So what that means is there's a 5% inflationary, and I'm just using 5% rounded, okay? So that's 929,000. Then you go to the next year, going from 24 to 25, that's another 975,000. So we have to figure out how to cover those expenditures, just like you do at home. And so that totals 1.9 million. So it's almost 12 mills just in those 2 5% increases. And you really look back to 2020 because it's almost 5% every year. So what happens with the revenue neutral rate, if the dollars are locked and you have over the last, say 5% over the last 6 years, that's 30% increase in expenditures. So if you don't have other revenue sources, it's kind of misleading when the state legislature says that your revenue neutral rate is going to lock the tax dollars, because expenditures are not locked. And so what we have to figure out is other revenue sources. So what has happened here, just in a big picture, is in 2024's budget, and this is a tax increase, in 2024's budget, roughly the assessed value in tax dollars went up $712,000 because the assessed value went up almost 10 million, okay? In 25's budget, it went up 381,000, roughly. So that totals $1,093,000. And I told you 5% is 1.9 million. So we had to figure out in our budget how we were going to cover roughly $810,000 of revenue that we don't have to cover, whether it's pay increases or road construction or whatever. What has saved you and all the other counties I work with is interest income. So what has happened from 22, interest income in a county of your size was probably less than $100,000, probably $70,000, okay? But then interest rates, as you know, has went up over the last couple of years. So in 23's budget, you've got $660,000 of interest income to help actually fill that gap in, because the revenue neutral locks the dollars. And we're estimating in 24 it'll be another $550,000 of interest income, and then in 25, roughly $450,000, because they're probably going to at some point take the rates down. So 24, 25, that would be $1 billion. So we're pretty close to covering, a little over covering that hole, and there's other expenses. So I think when the state says revenue neutral, yeah, you can lock the tax dollars all you want. It's just like at home. If you lock it at $4,000 and your expenses are $5,000, how do you do that at home? Well, it's sad, but you probably have to do credit cards or some other, if your savings is used up, and that's the same here. We have tried to lock it down. You've been you're very blessed in the county to have had some money set aside in capital improvement to cover some of these expenditures. So I don't know if is that.
No, and that's exactly it. We had a lot of cash on hand that we were able to use to cover some of these expenses. And I don't have to go through the list of expenses that have gone up from gravel, in 3.5 years, it's gone from $13 a ton to over $19 a ton. It's just those types of things. And so for us, it's trying to figure out how do we strategically use that cash on hand without going too far below, because as a county, we're required to keep enough cash on hand. If something would happen, we can pay bills over a 6-month period. And not having to raise taxes any more than had to be. So that was one of the things. The increase this year, $384,000 or $85,000 that Scott talked about, the increase of that is an evaluation, and the 0.05 increase in the mill, that dollar amount is covering just the raises for county employees. We gave all of our county employees across the board this year a 4%, or not this year, but it will take effect in January, a 4% cost of living allowance. What I'd like for you to understand about that is, for years, county employees did not get raises, or they got very little raises. And it's been our goal, because to bring that up to a living wage where our men and women who work here can say they appreciate and like working for the county, but make money too. I mean, they struggle just like everybody else. And so the biggest part of that is retaining employees. In January of this year, it was the first time in 3 years that we were fully staffed in our road and bridge department. We've lost a couple of people, but we were training employees, and they were leaving to go to Bettis, or they were leaving to go to Hams, or they were going anywhere. Same with Sheriff Morris back here. He would get men and women trained up, and they would leave for a better job at another agency because this county didn't pay very well. Now we're trying to get that in place where these employees, once we get them trained and they get into a job, they don't want to leave. They want to stay here because of the benefits, because of the pay. I think most of you would agree that if you put a couple years training into an employee, getting a CDL, getting certified as law enforcement, whatever that may be, the court system, whatever it is, and they leave after 2 years, you're just wasting money. And so that's what we've tried to do. Any other comments or thoughts before we start, gentlemen?
Well, I was asked recently about employees and everything, and I stated this fact, that we reduced 2 office employees down to 1. We've reduced refuse that cost the county from Waste Management, I'll just tell you who it was, to another company out of Effingham, and we saved over $40,000. We have done this several times this year, as well as coming up with gas, with contracts that were going for gas and everything. We are also faced with the fact that sometimes our courts are over budget, that we have to take care of public individuals with public defenders that could create crime in this county. We pay for it as taxpayers. They can ask for a public defender, and that was hurting us a lot over the years too. So we've kind of remedied all these and also saved some money.
Okay. With that, I'll open up the public comment section of this. If you want to read the first name on there,
Which was John Boyd.
John, you can speak first.
So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna remind you guys.
Okay.
Later on, I probably have something different to say.
Okay.
to remind you, this is House of Reform session. We people tell you we don't want our taxes raised. You can't raise them. If you do, you can have your bonds. I know you're all on. You don't want that.
Thank you. Next.
Next is Chris Edwards,
I'm just gonna render my time.
Okay, thank you.
Wendy Edwards,
Okay.
Katrina.
Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about what it feels like when you open that tax document and you see this increase. But before that, before we get that, it hits the headlines that our assessed valuations are increasing at 5.6 mil. And then we look at it and we see $389, I think, approximately thousand that you're getting to the base of your budget. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that makes sense, that, that goes up. But then when it turned around, and we got the second mill increase, that's when I was like going, wait a minute, what's going on here? Usually they don't both rise at the same time. Usually your mill will stay down, your valuations go up, or vice versa. But never do we see them normally trend upward at the same time. Jackson County happens to be getting hit pretty hefty with taxes. Tell me a little bit about what was the raise that your employees got? Because first of all, I want to also make clear to everyone, I am not against a hardworking person getting a raise. That's not what I'm saying here today, so please know that. I am all for these county employees getting paid well, okay? But what was their increase last budget?
15%.
Oh,
15%.
what's the big wage?
Please, Katrina's got the floor.
So 15%
That is correct.
plus
Plus what?
$1. $1. You gave them $1, plus you gave them 15% on top of that increase, okay? So it's printed in the paper, I have the documents, I'm happy to share,
Okay.
okay? I know my time is limited, so I'm trying to talk fast. And then this year, what is the increase for them? 4%. And then what was the increase in my taxes and valuation this year? Approximately, what was that percentage?
You mean a bill?
No, do you know what the percentage increase we got increased? The average? The average? Okay.
Average.
It was about 4%, okay? It was about 4%. But bottom line is, I want to see you take those monies without raising our mill and figure out a way that we can pay for these county employees if you so choose that you think they're willing to, and I'm all for it. But please don't ask us, the taxpayers. There are other avenues to do this, whether we cut. If I'm at home, I cut my budget too. I do without that new car. I do without something. I don't go to the credit cards. Okay, so I'm asking you to find places in your budget to reduce it, so we don't have this happen. We want to live here. We love this community, but you're making it real hard for us to keep staying here and for people to want to come. We need to grow, okay? That's what I'm saying.
I do.
I stated that, but I can't really see you. There's two things I want to show you. First of all, please look at this sign. We have lost 33,000 acres to the U.S. government putting in trusts. We're losing that.
Over how many years, Dan? Let him finish.
In the last 25 years, about 16,000 have been put in the trust. It started out with about 15,000 in 1946. We understand. But we're losing the revenue, which we calculate just as agricultural land, $46 million. If we had that, things would change drastically. Now, by visiting with the clerk, I asked her to run figures on a $125,000 house value. It raised that house for this next year 72 cents a year. That's residential. Commercial, it goes to $1.56 increase in taxes.
Per thousand, per 120.
125,000.
My tax isn't showing quite, the pennies, okay?
Where do you live?
So, I'm in the cities, so I get a city
In
tax,
Bolton?
yes, I get a city tax and a whole tax. Does anybody else know that? Or it's county tax, you get city and county if you live in Lowell.
I do too. Do
Yeah.
You do realize that you get almost 14 bills from the school district, right?
I get 14, okay, yes, I know.
You pay
for our
14.
school district. I understand we get a bond issue, I know all of that. Yes, we're not talking about the school because that's real important in our town too. But rebuttal to you, Dan, I feel like this didn't happen overnight.
Right.
This has happened over time, and I'm sorry that's happened. And I think we do need to get a handle on it. I appreciate your efforts, every one of you. You know, I hope that you are working on that. But we have to look at other avenues, how to get to where we're getting for our money. We need to look at our county's growth rate. We need to be looking for businesses coming in, and I'm not talking about little ones, because we're running them out of town as fast as we can get them. Take a look, they're leaving real quick, and we were losing some good ones. But we have to find some big corporations. However, that's not gonna happen with the way our taxes are. And I think Adam is next up, so he can share some of that information.
Thank you.
Adam?
Yeah, so my name's Adam Lupke. Just kind of wanted to piggyback on a little bit on what my mom had just said. When you look at, the county mill levies and the valuations across the board of the counties surrounding us, as you can see, we're right here. We're towards the top on mill levy rates. We're getting pretty high. When you look around at Nemaha and Brown, Potawatomi, Atchison, any county around us, they're doing really well, and they're at the bottom of the list. And I will say Pratt, I think they're at like a 58, and they have like just over a $200 million valuation. They're kicking our tails with, a lot lower taxes.
They just lost 14 million because the natural gas underground was changed in pricing, so they have a $14 million assessed value drop this year in their budget. And so that alone they had to raise their mill levy like $6 million. So, and I'll speak to Brown. I don't do Brown's budget, but I do what's called ARPA funds there. And I've been talking to commissioners about it.
Yeah, my point is the counties around us, like Nemaha and Brown, which are very comparable, they have half the mill rate and almost $100 million higher valuation than we have. There's no reason that we can't have a lower mill rate and a higher valuation, not just from assessed values, but also from companies that want to come in and want to put a business in Jackson County. If I was an owner, a business owner, if I was a CEO or president of a company, I would look at, okay, I want to put my business in the Sun Belt. Northeast Kansas is a great spot. I'm going to look at all the counties in Northeast Kansas, and I know which one I'm not going to pick. Okay, so there's other ways we need to generate revenue, infrastructure, all these other issues, and I know it runs super deep, and I know it's very complicated, I understand that. My point is that these things can be handled outside of a mill rate increase, and I don't think that's the right way to do it. And secondly, I would like to ask where we came up with the 4% increase for the county employees.
That was I'll answer that one because I looked it up online when I was doing it. That was the day we decided on that. That was the inflation rate that day.
Okay, so today it's at like 2.
Right now.
Today it's at like 2.8. You can go look this stuff up. It's actually gone down. That's why the Feds are talking about cutting interest rates and bringing those down, because inflation, that number they're looking for is around that 2% to stay under. So 4% is high. Even if you adjust it for that reasoning, it should at least be adjusted down to, if that's your reasoning why you chose it.
Yeah, I just said that's the reason that we did it.
It's not 4% right now, is my point.
Okay, and what did I just say? I just said that the day that we were discussing this, it was 4%, so that's what we set it at. Are you gonna say that by the end of the year, it's not gonna be 5, it's not gonna be 1? You have to set something.
We tried to find
a happy medium.
Go with both would be a good increase.
Well, I don't think 4% or 15 and $1 plus 4%, we're getting close to 20%. Nobody in here that works for a company is going to get that raise from their employer.
And
I think Dan could probably speak to that.
And I appreciate that. But what I would tell you is the reason behind the 15% increase was because for years, these employees did not get very large increases, or they got none at all.
You know what?
I let the commissioner think so now.
Okay. Probably because the budget didn't allow for it.
You can guess.
Thank you. Sure. Yeah, that's probably the reason. Corporation, your boss doesn't give you a raise because you didn't make enough money. Whether the cost of goods went up, cost of expenses went up, and guess what? We didn't make as much money. We didn't profit enough. We look at EBITDA. We look at all these things, and we understand, hey, there's not enough money to go.
Time's up.
I'm Mike Glover, and I'm not really, I think that the increase in pay is important. I own a body shop outside of town, I hire people for a living, and it is hard, 100%, I get that, to keep somebody. You know, you have to pay them more money in order to keep them, because they're just gonna go somewhere else. I'm 100% with that, but there's other ways to go at this. We're on the retail sales tax, we're on the low side on the retail sales tax right now. We need to be up with the people, because there's nobody's gonna drive all the way to the peak just because our sales tax is the same as the peak is. That's what we really need to be looking at. Raising our sales tax, retail sales tax. That way, everybody that drives through, there's 21,000 cars every day that goes down that highway. I've got the meter outside my shop. I watch them go by every day. You can hardly even get on. They're spending money constantly coming through this town with casinos on each side. People are spending money here. Let's raise our sales tax. Let's get the money we need. Raise the sales tax so that everybody in this county will pay for it at the same time, whether you own property or you don't own property. It's the most honest and the most fair taxes there is. So let's raise sales tax, forget about the mill levy, get our sales tax up where it needs to be, because it does need to be higher. We're way down, and even if somebody drives somewhere else to buy a car, they're still gonna pay your sales tax.
Thank you, Scott. I agree with you, Scott. I think,
Mike.
I'm sorry, Mike. I agree with you. Sales tax is one of the fairest ways to handle that. It takes 18 months to get through the state legislature to get that done. You have to have somebody who will sponsor a sales tax percentage increase. Then in January, it'll go through the process. We've talked about that, and I agree. But I will tell you, on the other side of that, we've also had, when talking about that, we've had people who own businesses, from car dealerships to you name it, telling us, go kill us if you do that.
But it doesn't.
And so, I'm just telling you what.
That's not true, but that's not true. Just so you know, that's not true, because if they're coming from Topeka, if they pay for a car here, they still have to pay Topeka taxes. Just so you know that. Wherever county they're from, the taxes they have to pay. And so that doesn't help at all.
I do understand, and I do, it's something that we've talked about, and I'd like to try to find a sponsor and figure out what that number would be. I agree.
We should have been, as you, as county commissioners, you should have been thinking about that long ago, because we've been setting at 7.9% for your county for 10, 12 years, and you haven't upped it.
Let's see a show of hands that like the possibility of raising sales tax.
Instead of
mill levy?
Yeah, it's a fair.
in place of,
The majority?
Yeah.
Okay.
because then if you don't want to spend money, you waste money.
Evan, I'm gonna butcher your last name, I'm not gonna try, sorry.
That's all right.
We need to hold it down so that we can hear it. Thank you.
So right now is not the time to be raising sales tax on the people that live in the county this way. This is the time, as you talked about, the inflation's up. Families are struggling. It costs $17,000 more a year for a family to be in the same position that they've been in previous years. And you know, I can't remember who brought it up, but y'all raised your employees' salaries 15% last year. Do you know anybody else in the county working any jobs who's gotten a 15% raise? I don't. And you know, we talked about with Scott, or sorry, Mike, got down Scott train. You talked about with Mike that it would take 18 months to get the sales tax thing pushed through. We'll hold off on the raises. Hold off for 18 months. If that's what needs to be done to make this fair for everybody in the county, so you're not pushing people out of their homes, then make that fair. Do what's right.
Thank you.
Rex Laris.
Thanks for having us here. got a couple questions on the budget. In 2022, the budget was $16,665,351. 2023, it was $18,418,350. And then in 2024, it was $32,612,350. Now it's back to $23,236,534. And I think we addressed that, maybe Scott or whoever might be able to address how we ended up with that much more money. I know that this year, you started out, in 2023, you started out $7,823,400 and some dollars carry forward. And then in 2024, you started out $6,592,680 carry forward. So can you explain to me on this $32 million, how it's went from 18 to 32 back to 20?
Hey, Rex, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this portion of the meeting is about the mill levy. And so be glad to listen to your questions about the budget when we get to that. Okay? So we'll give you a full 3 minutes to start over, but this is about the mill levy only, and then we'll move into the budget portion of questions on that.
Teresa?
Well, first of all, I do agree with people that it's great to get raises. However, I haven't gotten a raise in several years. So the fact that you're giving your employees a 20% raise and I have to pay for it, lucky you guys that you can just like shove their raise off onto us and then we have to pay for it. But when I bought my house 2 years ago, my mortgage is now $200 more per month than it was when I bought my house, which is ridiculous to me because when I'm a single mom, I have one income. I can't just go get a second job because I can only work when I have daycare. So I'm working every hour that I can while I have daycare, and that's all I can work. And I can't work more, I can't get a second job, I can't get a night job. I have a kid, and I gotta take care of her. But the way that you guys are increasing our taxes every single year at this rate, I'm going to be forced out of my home, and I'm gonna have to go into foreclosure, and then it feels like you're trying to just chase us lower to middle class people out of town because we just want fancy people. I don't know. But the median property tax in Bolton is 1.71%. And that's higher than both the national average and the Kansas average. The national average is 0.99%. So you guys are set 0.7% over the national average. And you are over the Kansas average also. And I just want to know how you expect us as taxpayers to be able to continuously pay more and more and more in taxes so that you can raise your employees' your employees' income, which is great for them, but my gas has gone up, my electric's gone up, all of my bills have gone up like theirs have, but my income has not gone up. Yet everything I have to pay for is costing more and more and more. And then you guys keep raising the taxes, and I'm about ready to get forced out of my home. So, what are you gonna do about that?
Can I ask a question? Are you done with the question?
Well, she said I was done. I'm gonna.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You mentioned your mortgage went up $200 a month,
Yeah.
okay? Do you have your insurance coming out of there also?
Yep, and it's not much of it. It's mostly taxes. I looked at my printout. It is predominantly taxes.
Because, and the reason I ask that is because my insurance is, crazy, and I think everybody else's has too.
Mine did not.
We're paying, okay, well then you're more lucky than that for some reason.
It was
Because we're paying
predominantly
on the West Coast
taxes.
and the East Coast, it's happening out there, so that's why our insurance is going up.
My
If yours hasn't,
you guys did say in 1 year, my house apparently became worth $30,000 more than it was the year before. So that was a big, huge jump in taxes. So that was the first $80 of my tax increase. And then the next year it went up $120, but the value of my home did not go up. So.
And you do realize that part of that goes to the school district.
Sure, and I don't even go to school here, so I don't even care about the school district.
I
Honestly.
understand that, but if you live in an area where there is a school,
Yeah,
part of
get
it
that.
goes to a school district, part of it goes to a fire
but
district.
you're not gonna have
part
much of a
it goes to
school
family.
district if people are kicked out of their homes, because they can't afford them anymore.
What I'm trying to explain to you is, we collect all the taxes, so that the school districts, they all have their own mill levies.
Assessed value.
What's that?
I think she's talking about her assessed values going up.
Well, my assessed value went up
She was
1
talking
year.
about her house thing went up $200.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It was
My
supposed
son
to be a-
lives in the whole area, his went up too, because of the school district and the property taxes that everybody, if the school districts go, if the valuation goes up and the school district is the revenue neutral, they're getting more money also.
Correct, that's correct, they
Thank
do,
you.
but
So-
that's because of
I-
the increase in assessment.
I do understand that, but I'm saying
It's
taxes
not all coming to
continuously.
the county, is what I'm trying to get.
Well, I get that, but you guys are raising your tax, you want to raise your taxes, and you raised them last year, and like every time you raise them, our mortgages go up, and they go up, and they go up, and pretty soon, we won't be able to afford our mortgages anymore. When we bought our houses, the mortgage was X amount of dollars. And I'm like, okay, that's something I can fit in my budget. And then you guys, whenever you just feel like it, can raise the taxes, and we just somehow have to pull it out our butts. And it doesn't exist there.
Okay.
I don't have any money there, I don't know about anybody else.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
I would like to invite everybody to take a look at the website. I'll post it on Jackson County PPA on the Facebook.
Matt,
Mr. Luke?
Matt?
Yes.
if you have a question, ask it.
I'm getting my question laying the groundwork for you.
Yeah, you're not here to advertise your whatever.
Okay.
Ask it.
Are you gonna tell me to shut up like you did in the last meeting?
I didn't tell you to shut up.
Oh, it's on video.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Okay. So the other counties around us, as Rick Luthy pointed out, have much lower budgets than we do and are getting by just fine. And I don't want to hear about this, Dan, we're talking about this. But at the end of the day, you're saying that this tax increase is the biggest pay raise. I would ask for you guys to explain to all these fine people here, and by the way, I support that county workers should get a pay raise, but why are you doing it across the board instead of based on merit? And I promise you, there are people who work for the county who deserve a pay raise based on doing a good job, and there's some people that maybe don't, and if they don't stay here and they go to work for someone else, so be it. There was a particular county employee that told me that he felt like they're better off having a handful of good employees than a whole bunch of bad employees. I tend to agree with that person.
two-minute warning.
That's all. So please explain to us why you're not doing it based on merit.
Because we don't feel the fairness is fair, because who's gonna judge? Okay. Listen to me, please. How do we judge merit?
Well,
Hard work.
Are you asking me that question?
Well,
I'm asking the next
hang
question.
on, Mark, hang on.
Or are you asking me that question?
Okay, go ahead.
So, what you're asking is already being done. So we converted in Road and Bridge, I don't know what Kim does in his department, in his election, I don't know what Christie does in her department. I do, because we talk, but we converted in our Road and Bridge, and I'm gonna use that as an example. It has a pay scale that is developed, and you are promoted based on your skill set, based on evaluation. What we're giving is a cost of living allowance, a COLA raise. And so we're giving that COLA raise across the board. That should answer your question.
So replying to your question, I believe you're asking me, the answer is we assign goals that are fair, measurable, objective.
We do
And
that.
that's what
We do
private
that.
businesses do.
I do that for every county
Sheriff
employee.
Morris is able to do
So
that.
you all can sit here and laugh at me when I say, how do you judge merit? Matt, I'm talking, you asked me a question, I'm answering, okay? How do we judge merit fairly across the board? Because we said,
Allow.
Matt, I'm gonna ask you one more time to allow me to speak. We asked them to do the goals, we set the goals in each different department. We don't set them. Christie does, Scott does, Linda does for her department. The department heads set the goals. Now, if the goals aren't met, they don't get their raises or bump up through the steps. So we don't deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So we don't set the merit raises, we set the goals, and we set the COLA raises, which we're giving across the board to the employees. Now, does that make sense to you?
I understand what you're saying. I
Okay.
hope that the public understands that you're just giving everybody a raise regardless of whether they're doing a good job or not.
That's not,
We're giving
Right, that's COLA.
that's,
a
and that's not
COLA raise.
uncommon.
Cost
That's
of
not
living
uncommon
raise.
in most corporations or school districts or you name it.
What about the
Most
rest of us who
places,
aren't getting
most-
cost of
ma'am.
living raises? And then we have to pay for your cost of living raises.
I appreciate you, Chris, but just let them go. You guys.
I'm done. Next person?
That's it.
That's it? Okay. Is there anybody else who has not spoken, who did not sign up, who would like to state their name, who would like to speak? Go ahead and allow that to happen. There.
I have a question.
You have a
State
question?
your name, please.
Darren Allard, I live in District 3.
Yeah.
Let me clarify this. So they're getting 4% COLA raise.
That's correct.
I've been professional my entire life. I've never gotten a 4% raise.
Okay.
It's always been 1 to 2%. Okay? That's,
Okay.
okay. And they're getting merit raises on top of that? Not across the board. So they're not getting, I know it's not across the board, but there are employees getting raises on merit.
Each department has their budget. So I'm gonna use a grader operator for example. Okay? So if you're driving a dump truck, there's two.
You mean, I know.
You asked it. Okay, you asked the question, so I'm trying to explain it. A merit raise in a particular department, and I'll use road and bridge because that's what I know. If you're driving a dump truck, you're a Class A CDL, and you're making a wage X, and you decide that you want to make more money, and a blade operator's position comes open, and you have the skill set to move into that, you're allowed to do that, they're trained, and then you're moved up. That's merit. If you don't have the skill set, you don't move up, and you don't get more money.
So
That explain?
in 2024, what is the highest raise in 2022? Just on average, I know you don't know everybody,
I don't have that in front of me.
but it's higher, it could possibly be higher.
I don't have that.
Okay.
I'm gonna allow you to speak one more time. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand what he was saying correctly. So you're saying outside of your cost of living 4% raise, within each department, there is a performance-based reviews and they get merit increases within the departments as well?
They have the ability to move people up the pay scale.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you're saying that you're giving them a 4% raise this year, and that's not including their merit increase that they could potentially, if they're doing well in their performance within their department. So it actually is probably more than 4%. Do you agree?
If someone is
No.
able to move up.
No, if they're able
Thank
to
you.
move up,
I
if they're
appreciate
already
that.
at the top of the list, then they can't move up anymore, so that's where they're at.
Answer my question.
So, with that,
Just one,
state your name.
Jay says, 222 and 16.
Yeah, use your name.
So in your example, a person had to take a different position to get a merit increase. What about the person, does anybody get a merit increase?
That's not the whole example. Let's go ahead.
That was, to me, that was a key aspect. He got the raise because he got a different job. But I'm driving a dump truck, and I'm
If
doing
you
my
guys
best.
need to go deeper, I can. So if you're driving a dump truck and you're at level 1, you can move up a couple of times within that
Okay,
position.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we have an entire pay scale set up. And I will tell you, prior to me being commissioner, Dan being commissioner, Mark being commissioner, that was not in place, merit based, what you're talking about. We were just giving people raises, just to give them raises, okay? Now it's merit based. So, I want you to understand that. We're gonna take 2 more, that's gonna be it. State your name.
Yeah, my name is Mike Branson. I have a simple question. I'm not a math guy, so I'm having a hard time keeping up. But am I to understand that the county employees received a 19% pay raise over the course of the last 2 years,
Plus a dollar.
plus $1?
They got 15% last year, which took effect January 1, 2024. And if this budget is passed, it would get a 4% in January. That is correct.
Okay.
Okay? All right. With that, if there's no other comments, State your name.
Tyler, and my biggest question is for anybody that's got a complaint about any of the raises that this county people are making, why don't you ask what they were making before the raises? You know, they're not making $25, $30 a freaking hour. I mean, you gotta understand where they were at before they got that raise. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Can I make one comment? I just want to bring to mind as retired people,
Yes, ma'am.
we're on set incomes. I've been in my house for 10 years. Every year it's gone up. Every year. And it's really starting to squeeze now, so,
I appreciate that.
yep.
I really do.
Okay.
When anybody else signed up, we're gonna move it. I'm gonna be just accommodating. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, right. You're gonna stand up. Yeah. Go ahead.
How nice. Russell Luther,
Yeah.
when you three guys ran for your political office, which one of you guys ran on the slogan of lower taxes? Was that either one of you guys?
Yes, I did.
You did?
I did.
Dan, did you run on that slogan?
Yes.
Mr. Burke, you did not run on that slogan?
Why would I run that slogan? I never made any promises to anybody, and I told everybody when I went to each house in my district, tried to go to each house in my district, and talk to them, and tell them, I'm not making promises to anybody, but try to do the best thing that I can for the county.
With the money that you have to work with?
That's not what I said.
No.
Did I say that to you, sir?
No, I was
Okay,
asking.
what did I just say, Russell, what I said?
You said that you were trying to do the best for what you could do.
For the county.
Well,
Not
the
for me,
people.
for the
For
county.
the people.
For the people of the
That's
county,
all
yes,
I'm
sir.
trying.
I made no promises to anybody other than trying to do the best that I could for the county. And I
That's
believe,
okay. After the notes.
and I believe, Russell, that we three have done things for this county and have tried to do things for this county and are continuing to try to do things for this county. By trying to get federal legislation to get us money, I know you don't want to hear about it, but that's really taking a bite out of this county. I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain to you, Russell, we are trying to do the best we can for this county. That's why we are looking for cost-cutting measures at every turn. Okay, we're trying to make county employees more efficient by buying equipment that instead of I'll give you a great example. We bought a tube cleaner that takes 2 people to operate. Before, if somebody went out to clean an entrance tube to a driveway, okay, took 6 people, 3 different pieces of equipment. Now it takes 2 guys, the tube cleaner, and they can clean the tube in, Linda, what is it, 90 minutes rather than a full day? 16 for a full day? So we're trying to make the county more efficient that way. Yes, we spend a little bit of money doing that, but it's saving money in the long run, and that's what we're looking to do. That's why we switched trash companies, because, as Dan said, waste management was just part of my trade, but screwing the hell out of it. If we could not get it changed. Okay? That's why we look at margins out of Effingham, because we're saving so much money, it's not funny. We're looking for that at every single term.
And those are 2 very good examples, and we appreciate you taking the funds of the people and doing the best you can with them. The question I think most of us have is, what can we do economically to bring in corporations or bigger companies into our county to help pay for this?
That's a great question. And I've spoken with Rowdy, who's standing over here multiple times. Rowdy was kind enough, he helped us find a lobbyist who is helping us work on this for the federal legislation. Rowdy, we've talked to Rowdy many times about a guy who is connected with big corporations and big business. Help us out. What can we do? But I'm telling you, the large and the big companies, they're going to be, why? Yeah, you tell me.
Well, it's your mill rate.
This is the taxes, yeah.
100%, you don't understand that. No, say for example, like Seneca.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
there's just nothing to it other than that. It was just the best deal, you know, but I hate taxes, first of all, you guys know this. But I got all kinds of tax incentives.
Where did you get this? You got federal legislation that helps you get money.
Not first act all came out of government, and they stepped way up on that. But we looked at bringing it to Jackson County, but.
Excuse me.
The deal was better also.
Okay.
Well, the point to the question is, take for example, a small town, Sabetha, Kansas, Winger, Crosswind Foods, Extruditech, MAP, all of those big companies help that county, and that's what we need in Jackson County, and that's what you guys need to try to help us do, is to bring in those kind of businesses to help us.
Okay, and you mentioned Brown. Adam, you mentioned Brown County, you mentioned Nemaha County, all along 36th border, right? What's up there?
I just told you.
There you go. The railroad's up there. Do you know how much that helps those industries? We had Rock Island here, Rock Island went bankrupt. You can sit there and shake your head, but it's true.
You think
that
Phillips Company up
Okay.
in Seneca uses
We're
the
done.
railroad?
That helps those companies up there big time.
No more.
Simple.
Alright, so we're gonna hold it down. We have one more comment right here.
And some of the things you don't see or hear about is that we have appealed to our Kansas legislators. They have money set aside in casino dollars. We have appealed to them, sent them letters over the course of the last, 3.5 years, asking them to help us with our court system, also with our law enforcement, because law enforcement is really pushed to the limit on that, because we have so much traffic on 75 highway, whether it is the casinos or other activities. You can see all the time that Sheriff Morris and his staff are out there protecting us. We need help getting that money back to help, as well as our court systems. Our court systems last year were over budget, because, as I said before, those criminals don't have anything, and we as taxpayers are paying for their defense.
Adam, I do what, on Adam? Adam, no, Adam, is that correct? Is it Adam?
That's Adam over here.
Okay. One of the things that we've done, had a conversation about hiring one individual to actively recruit business. We had that conversation, I had that conversation with Ralph.
In my office here.
And I know it does. And so, part of that involves funding. So what we're trying to look at is pulling money away from appropriations that we give to other agencies around the county and outside of the county to utilize that money to do that type of thing. So we are trying to actively recruit, but it's tough to try to find businesses that want to come in here. We had one that wanted to build the south end of the county, couldn't supply 1 million gallons of water on a daily basis. So just so everybody understands, we are actively looking for businesses to come in here. So anyway.
And we actively looked at doing a sales tax to do economic development, and it's still on the table. It's not gone.
Yeah, I just want everyone to be clear that I'm not against, hardworking people getting raised. I think that's important, but I just think we have to find other ways, like you mentioned,
I agree.
to get that money.
And we do actively look for those.
Well, we have to be able to support it too, so we have to figure out, there's a lot of moving parts, Rowdy understands. It's a deeper issue than the mill levy, that's kind of what we're talking about, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
We're good, yeah, thank you. We're gonna go ahead and move on. Commissioners, any other discussions from you before the proposed budget? No. May I have a motion?
I move that we adopt a resolution to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Would, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Dan Brenner says yes. Mark Pruitt?
Yes.
Keith Kelly, yes. Motion passes.
So I think it's important for everyone to see that, the vast majority of people wanted one thing and they did another, so just keep that in mind, remember that. So.
I will tell you that on June, and this is important for everybody here, on June 19th, we had every department head and every elected official sitting in this room from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 7 o'clock at night. And that, the purpose of that meeting, and I had the conversation with this gentleman over here a year ago.
You did.
I came up with that idea and I said, what do you think? I called you, didn't I? And you said,
I said, it sounds like a good idea.
and so we put that together. The sheriff was here. Everybody was here in this room. And that opportunity was so that every individual in this room and in this county could come in, they could sit down in front of Christie, they could sit down with me, Dan, the sheriff, and say, okay, walk us through this budget. Why are you having to spend what you're having to spend? And at that time, it would have given us enough time to make some changes. Can you tell me how many people showed up to that meeting in a 4-hour period?
I can tell you that I did not
Can
show
you
up.
tell me how many people showed up?
I was not here because I did not know about it.
13,500 people in this county, 0 showed up to give us feedback on the budget.
I don't think anyone knew about it.
I didn't know.
0 showed up. I
Yours
just want everybody to understand.
This is the snow chair report for Mr. Chair. Tell them, buddy. Mr.
Yes, we
Chair,
did. We have a
you put it in the newspaper. I've got no more newspaper, you don't pay anything.
It is our.
John, I've got the report, please.
Publication.
I've got the report, please. Before we continue with the vote, and before the motion is seconded, I need to read this resolution.
Go ahead, read it, please.
Whereas the revenue neutral rate for the county was calculated at 70.038 mils by the Jackson County Clerk. And whereas the governing body held a hearing on August 22nd, 2024, allowing all interested taxpayers desiring to be heard an opportunity to give oral testimony. And whereas the governing body of the county of Jackson, having heard testimony, still finds it necessary to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the governing body of the county of Jackson, the county shall levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate of 70.038 mils. This resolution shall take effect and be enforced immediately upon its adoption and shall remain in effect until future action is taken by the governing body. Adopted this 25th day of August 2024 and signed by the governing body. Thank you. Second.
The move second, all in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes,
And I'd like to make a statement, you're incorrect in your statement that we did what you guys did. Let's wait till the next hearing for the budget, then you can say that because this is state mandated that we have this hearing with you all, okay? We had to have this hearing, now we go into the budget hearing. So you can say that after that.
This concludes the hearing on the revenue neutral. The next will be the county budget.